how do you, in your own head, have come to, let's say, reconcile those two sides? The side that's mystical or fascinated by these questions of the soul, or the things that are beyond reason and the intuition, and the way that you relate to reason, at least as it's it sort of expressed through a certain kind of skepticism and a certain kind of love of science.
Well, I still believe what the angel told Descartes, which is, nature is understood through the coordination of measurement and proportion. So really, nature is the study of proportion and the making of measurement. And there doesn't seem to be any problem in any... We have very powerful instruments for taking measurements, and very powerful instruments now for modeling and constraining the data, and we're making progress. I mean, I think, in terms of stuff like the internet, human longevity, recovery of energy sources, and all this sort of thing, that humanity is probably in great shape for the next 100 years, if anybody gives a shit. But that kind of time scale.
So you're not as sort of overwhelmed with a kind of dystopian scenario, which is obviously an easy thing to do when contemplating the future?
Yeah, I think that dystopian in the sense of losing control of primary processes inside civilization, and so having like disease, fascism, economic breakdown, problems like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty high faith in systemics.
Do you see the internet as being both? Is that more of a hopeful direction, or can you see it also exacerbating the problem?
No, I think it's more of a hopeful direction. The happy story I like to tell myself about the internet is someone in some tiny village up in Ontario or in Kenya or in Brazil somewhere who gets next to the internet and realizes, I can get out of this preposterous scene by simply, if I'm ambitious, if I just unleash my own ambition and the educational power of this, then I can go to the large city and conquer, go to the capital and export myself to somewhere else. And I assume this is happening because, you meet in the third world incredibly ambitious people who only by their circumstance are confined. Well, if you rearrange their circumstance, so if they want a degree in electrical engineering, all they have to do is be online night after night after night. That's pretty exciting.
So how do you see that changing the kind of the cultural matrix or the emerging global culture?
Well, hopefully it gives it a more international flavor, and people realize that there is I don't want to use words like a natural elite of native intelligence or something like that, but in fact there is something like that. I mean, smart people would be a fine thing to put them in charge for a while and see if that does any good. I mean, they're taking charge where the money is, but that's not a very deep value. What if they took charge where the power and the actual, the morphogenetic intent was coming from? The design process. This is what.
But do you see that happening? I mean, are you? I mean, if that's sort of your vision, you must be a little concerned about the evident power of money and pure greed to largely drive development rather than design principles with an eye towards the future and social equity and ecological improvement.
Yes, except to some degree, except that it is people who, Mao said, or somebody said, to get rich is glorious. I'd say to get rich is modestly affirmable, something like that. There's no sin in getting rich, as long as what you're doing is not, making people into lampshades or something like that. It's better than a collectivist goal of some sort, it seems to me.
How do you feel about that conjunction of media manipulation, money, and celebrity that's so dominant now?
Well, you have to have something to sell. You have to have something people actually want. I mean, if you're selling the Rolling Stones, or you're selling Charles Manson, or you're selling something like that, you might get somewhere. But inherently, you can't sell that which is turn off, or it becomes, it turns against itself. So, and that's what defeated fascism. Nobody wanted it. It was ugly, ultimately. It's probably what defeated socialism. Cinder block housing facilities, all this rhetoric about I don't know, social planning ran off the cliff in the 20th century. Maybe because there were too many people, or too much money, or not enough money, but something defeated all these utopian visions of how people might have lived. That's what I'm hoping doesn't happen in the next 25 years.
What doesn't happen?
That some lack of resource or vision doesn't reveal that we can't give enough people a bearable life. So we have to live forward into an age of revolution, social turmoil, and struggle for resources. It doesn't have to be this way.
Do you see it going in that direction?
Toward that kind of a struggle? That's my concern, that people and institutions not respond to need, and then what you get is a have-not situation. I mean, you wouldn't want the first half of the 21st century to look like the first half of the 20th century, with the equivalent of a Bolshevik dialogue, the equivalent of whatever soft leftism turned out to mean and be, because it turned out to mean and be not bloody much, as far as I can tell. I mean, there was a lot of labor unrest, some amelioration of some people's dilemma in the system, but the world is far richer than it appears to be, and that wealth is not trickling down or flowing down or making nearly as many people's lives as good as it could be. So far, it doesn't seem to have gotten out of hand. I mean, most people, if you give them a lot of money, they buy second homes and collect art. Well, this is not exactly like hunting down Serbs with your shotgun or something.